Hi everyone, welcome to another of our devotions. We're back into Psalm 3 again today. In our last study of this psalm, we saw how David was in trouble as a result of the rebellion of his son Absalom against him. Absalom trying to take over the throne and execute a coup d'etat, as it were. David is in trouble, but he turns to God in prayer and he finds strength in God. He sees God as his shield, one who would protect him from Absalom's wicked rebellion. But let's look at what else David says as he thinks about God. He's spoken of him as his shield. He goes on and he speaks of him as my glory. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory. Now think about that. As king, David enjoyed great glory. Absalom was endeavouring to take all that away from David. And in a sense, with David on the run, he had done that. And you would think that all David's glory had gone. No, says David, that's not the case. He sees God as his glory. Everything in the world could be taken, but David still has God. And that's the important thing in David's eyes. You remember the words that we find in Psalm 73, lovely words. Whom have I in heaven but thee, O Lord? And there is none on the earth that I desire besides you. It's as if David is saying, they can take everything away from me, but Lord, I still have you. You are my glory. And then he says, you are the lifter up of my head. This is a sort of a Hebraism, a way of saying you're the one who restores me, who rescues me and brings me back again to where I ought to be. You remember in Genesis chapter 40 how the cupbearer to Pharaoh, after he had had his dream interpreted by Joseph, he was then restored to his position, and the text says that his head was lifted up. In other words, he was restored by Pharaoh to the position that he had occupied. David says, you, Lord, are the lifter up of my head. I know that you will sort this out. And then we read, he cried to the Lord. I cried to the Lord, and he answered me. God is the God who hears. David knows that he's miles away now from the holy hill of Zion. He's had to leave Jerusalem. He's had to go into the wilderness. But even though he's geographically removed from Mount Zion, the place where God's presence was among his people, even though he was so far away from there, God nevertheless hears his prayers. He is a persecuted child of God. And as he cries out to God, he's able to say, he answered me. I think that brings great comfort and encouragement and assurance to us. We have a God who hears us when we cry out to him. We don't have to be in church. We don't have to be in any particular building. God hears our cries. And what's the result of that? Look at the true peace that David enjoys. Verse 5, I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. If you were being chased over the countryside by a horde of men seeking your life, I would suggest that you would find it difficult to sleep that first night and maybe even nights after that. David is able to sleep despite the enemies, despite the dangers, despite the uncertainty of what the future is going to hold. David has peace. And the reason, of course, that David is able to lie down and sleep at night, even with all this going on in his life, is because he has such trust in God. He knows God is for him. God has got this covered, and so he doesn't need to worry about this. And so David enjoys that peace and assurance, and he's able to lie down, have a good sleep, and get up again the next day. Not only that, verse 6 shows us that he's not even worried about the future, because he says, I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. He didn't know how many were against him and how many Absalom had got together, but David says, like, even if there's many thousands of people, I'm not going to be afraid. My times are in God's hands. I think it's worth noting that David's circumstances haven't changed at this point. David is still in trouble. He's still being pursued, but David has changed. He has an inner peace about this situation, and he is not going to worry. Now, folks, we all face difficulties and problems and distressing circumstances in our lives. What a wonderful pattern this psalm gives us to turn to God, who is our protector, our shield, who is our glory, the one ultimately who means more to us than anything in life, the one who is the lifter up of our head, the one who will vindicate us, the one to whom we can cry aloud, knowing that he will answer us. And because we have this confidence in God, no matter what we face, we can have that inner peace and contentment. We can sleep at night, anxiety gone. We don't need to fear, either now or in the future. Salvation or deliverance belongs to the Lord. David concludes in verse number 8. Your blessing be on your people. And you know what, folks? God's blessing is on his people. How wonderful for us who are the people of God. Have a great day.